Hello and welcome. Today is July 20th, 2021, and you have found me here in my happy place, which is my stamp studio. My name is Julie. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and you have found me here at my YouTube channel. You can also find me if you want to find my blog. You can see that at stampwithjuliebaum.com and find articles, find the uploaded videos, and more information. Today's card tutorial is going to actually lead you through the 3 cards that we made this month at Stamp Club. So 2 of the cards, I'm going to show you the details. You can stamp along with me or just watch and maybe come back and try those cards another time. The 3rd card, which is actually the one I'm going to start with, I'm just going to talk you through. It's really simple and you'll be able to understand the steps. So on this card, what I started with is a piece of Flirty Flamingo cardstock, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and folded. So there's my very traditional sized card base. This basic white is trimmed to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and that would be the perfect size to line the inside, especially when you're working with a colored cardstock base. This color would probably be okay if you wanted to write your sentiment or your message on the inside. Any darker, you definitely want to add a white layer, but most of the time I will add a white layer anyhow. The front of the card, you'll see the designer series paper is the star, so that's why this is such a fast card. This piece is trimmed to 4 inches by 5 1/4 and just attached to the cardstock. That paper happens to be one of the host gifts that can be purchased. It's on page 171 of the annual catalog, and it's pictured right here. It's got beautiful bright prints on one side and black and white prints on the other side. It's been super popular. A lot of people have asked about it. So that's where this paper came from. This rectangle is actually a scalloped and stitched rectangle, and it looks like this. This is from a set of dies called Stitched So Sweetly, which features a couple of tag type shapes in different sizes, and then these great rectangles that are scalloped and stitched. And I chose the 3rd from the smallest. So going from the smallest 1, 2, 3, that's the size that I used for my rectangle. The color of the rectangle is Granny Apple Green. Then I have a basic white scrap, and Thanks is stamped on it in black ink, and that is from this set called Biggest Wish, which is quickly becoming a favorite. I love the block letters and the size of those words, as well as then the scripty version. I think this is going to be a hit, and we're going to use this a lot. We are going to use it twice this morning, so once on this card, as you can see, and then we're also going to use it on the next card. So let's move on to that one. This is a baby card, obviously. This is done in Blushing Bride. And what I'm going to do is show you how to make this card, but we're going to go back and forth between the pink version and a blue version. This one is in Misty Moonlight. So I've got little parts to show you. We'll complete the card in the blue one, but I will show you the pink one is the one that the gals made at Stamp Club. So the first thing I want to point out is that this adorable baby card is actually made with a Christmas stamp set. So that is very excited when you can do lots of different things with your stamps besides being really narrowly focused on one thing. So yes, it's a Christmas stamp set, but by using the star and the sprigs and other elements, you can totally get, for instance, our baby card. I saw some beautiful things done that look very patriotic for July 4th, done with the stars and so forth. So using elements from tidings and trimmings, let's do some of the steps of this card. This piece here in the Blushing Bride is cut down to measure, let me tell you what that is. That measures 3 3/4 by 3 1/4, and it's going to go here in my greenery embossing folder. Greenery is one of a set of 2 embossing folders that come together. And I'm just going to run that through my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. This one is lovingly referred to at Stamp Club as our little Lulu. I do like to use my regular size Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine as well, of course. But when I am working on camera, I'm testing out my theory to see if it's just easier to grab this one because I can do it right here on the desktop and I don't have to walk away to go use my larger one. It's just too big to get in the area if I'm stamping and filming. So I've got my 1 plate and my 3 plate, and I have my embossing folder in there. And I'm just going to begin to run this through so we can get our embossed print on that Blushing Bride piece. All right, so we can take this apart and you see the beautiful texture from that. I just love it. So that is what we used for the pink card, for the baby card. And the what I'm going to do is switch now over to the blue version. I've already got some of the layers started. So let me show you that. I have a basic white cardstock base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4 and folded down the center. Then I have this layered piece. That's actually Sahara Sand. And it's my piece that's 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I just simply layered that onto my card front. And then I have another layer of white, which is 3 3/4 by 5. That's this layer. And then the colored layer lines up perfectly on top of that. Now what I did is I sandwiched in this little strip. This is actually designer paper that coordinates with that Tidings and Trimmings set. I believe it's called Christmas Trimmings, but again, this particular paper does not scream Christmas, so it just made for a nice little layer there. That's a 3/4 inch piece by, once I got it on there, I trimmed it down to 4 inches. So that piece is just layered between. But let's jump into the stamping and the finishing of this card. So what I have is the star stamp from Tidings and Trimmings, and I've got it mounted on my acrylic block, and I'm going to reach for Misty Moonlight and stamp one of these just on a white scrap. And I am using photopolymer, so I might go ahead and stick my Stampin' Pierce mat underneath it. And I'll leave a little bit of room. I think I can do a couple things on this white scrap. So here's my Misty Moonlight star. And I'm going to cut it out. I think I will just do what we did a second ago. I'm going to pull in my mini. Here's little Lulu. And this time I need a 1 plate and a 2 plate. Then I'm going to cut out my star. So here is the die. And I need to cut out another piece. This little die is a little white sprig element, so I'm going to add that and just do those at the same time. I will cover that with another 2 plate if I can find it, and run that through. So on this one, I'm going to actually run it through forwards and backwards. Sometimes when a die is new to me and I'm not quite sure how it's going to cut out, I just want to give it the benefit of the doubt. Go through forwards and backwards to hopefully get it to cut out nicely. And it looks like we've done that. So here is our lovely little star in the misty moonlight. And here is that white element. Let's just pop him out. There we go. Then a couple other things that we're going to add to the front of our card. I used this the same set of dies, and with a piece of soft succulent, cut this guy out. So there's another element. And then we need a couple of stars. So we can take our scrap of white. I've actually got plenty of space on this one. And grab the little star die that is also part of that. Oh, he is tiny, so I'm going to grab him. And run that through. I'm only going to show cutting one star, but I'm actually using 3 on this card. So if you're stamping along, you might need to pause for a moment and get 2 more stars cut out. All right, there's the little star, and it's kind of neat. It's got like a tiny bit of a raised edge on it. You'll never be able to see it on camera, but in person you can. Okay, so let me pull in all of my stars. So you can see the elements that we're going to use to build the card front. Okay, now another piece that we need is this beautiful intricate star. So I have a piece of Sahara sand cardstock. Actually, it's just out of reach, so don't go away. I gotta scoot over and grab it. Hold on just a second, and then we will cut out that fancy star. I think when I was preparing for this, it must have fallen on the floor or gone somewhere. All right, so here's a piece of Sahara sand. And this star is really cool looking. We also used this star. Oh, that piece is not quite big enough. Okay, hang on. So when you need a bigger piece, you grab a big piece. And I know that I need this down to about 2.5. So I am eyeballing this just so I can get my Sahara sand scrap. Okay, we happened to use some of these same dies at my Christmas in July class, which was last Saturday. And we cut out this star out of gold foil paper. It was really beautiful. Today we need a Sahara sand star. So let's get this going. This one, because it is intricate, has lots of little bits that are going to pop out, I'm going to do it front and back as well. And I'm just going to run it through one more time. Save some time in getting the bits out. All right, and an easy way to do this is to just grab a foam mat and the die brush. This particular one is actually the attachment that goes on the U-pick tool. So I'm going to lay this on here and just scrub to get most of those bits and pieces out. And they do pretty much all come out. All right, and then I need to coax him out a little bit. There we go. And look, there's one little guy that didn't pop out and the rest did. That was pretty fast. Okay. Now, the next part is for the words that go on this card. I had mentioned to you that we were going to use the biggest wish. And so the hello, I'm actually going to stamp in soft succulent. And it's going to be on a scrap because it's going to get cut out. This is just going to get cut out with scissors, so fondly known as fussy cutting. So here's my hello. And then without taking the time to do it, I will show you this is just hello cut out with scissors, fussy cutting. So there's our hello. Now, this is the biggest surprise piece of the whole card. And as you can tell, in this stamp set, there's no baby word. So we're going to be creative and use the birthday to get our letters for baby. So I'll just show you how I did that. Here is the birthday stamp, and I've got my Misty Moonlight ink pad here. And what I did is also on scraps is I stamped, and I'm actually going to stamp this off so I get a lighter version of my Misty Moonlight. I'm going to stamp it off and then stamp my B on there. And I need 2 B's, so I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to stamp off. Let me grab a little scrap paper here so I can scoot this over. There we go. And I'm going to do that a second time. So now I have my 2 B's for the word baby. Then I'm going to stamp birthday once again, but this time I need the AY end. I'm going to stamp off so I get a lighter version, and I'm going to stamp AY on my scrap. So with just that little bit of creativity, I can now trim out all of my letters so that I get the word baby. And also, I'm not going to take the entire time to cut out all 4 letters. I'm just going to show you how quickly this is, because you're not going to drive yourself crazy about being too careful. So a couple of straight cuts, top, bottom. I'm going to go here along the side of the A, like so. And then you wouldn't need to, but I kind of want the little notch out of the middle of here. I want a little bit of air showing through there, a little bit of space. So I am going to just take a snip out of the middle of that A. Like so. So you can quickly cut your B, A, B, and Y out, so that you've got all the letters that you need. Let me find my Y that I pre-cut. There we go. There's all of our letters. And now we're ready to assemble the card. So let's bring that card base back in that was already started. All right. We've got this guy right here. The first thing I'm going to start with is my Sahara Sand Star. I'm going to take a little bit of liquid glue. There's one little guy hanging on to that. There we go. Got rid of him. I'm just going to use my liquid glue and make the tiniest dots possible. And what I like to teach my in-class students is to start your liquid glue on a scrap just to get it flowing. That way you're not going to have any big splooshes on your card. All right, so just get it flowing, and then you can go on to your piece. Now there's a couple different ways that you could do this, and in a different video I'll show you a way to add your liquid glue with a sponge brush method. But for the sake of time today, we are just literally going to do little dots of glue. Now I'm mostly concentrating on the largest cross points of my little pieces here. And I'm also at this point not worried too much about the very outside points of the star. As long as I've got my glue placed in these strategic spots, it's going to hold on to it just fine. Plus, another element is going to go on top of it. So I've got my star, and I will place it up towards the top of the blue piece and kind of centered right and left. Pressing that down. This part of the glue dot, the glue, liquid glue, is kind of squishing out, but you're going to see it's not going to be a problem because we have another piece that's going to layer right on top of this. All right, well, that's sitting there. I'm going to go ahead and tuck my little sprigs in. This one I'm going to want coming up here. I can trim that white stem a little bit, and I can trim the stem from the soft succulent piece as well. And just a couple dabs of glue on both of these sprigs, and then we'll tuck those in. And on this particular one, I'm mostly concentrating on the bottom part of the stem because it's what's going to get tucked in. And I don't mind if this part is kind of floating up in the air. It gives the card a little bit of motion. It doesn't feel so glued down and one-dimensional. And then the green, this is soft succulent with these tiny little leaves. Same thing. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, concentrating mostly on the bottom of this stem piece. And tuck that in as well. Let's see, where can I get this guy to go in? All right, like so. Now we're going to go to, I'm going to put a little dab right here. Okay, now I'm going to go to the blue star. This was the Misty Moonlight star that we cut out. I'm just going to add a couple of dimensionals to the back of it. Whoops, everything's sliding. Let's get this up here. You can see a couple of dimensionals. And add this one in place. And again, this is going to also sort of anchor that Sahara Sand intricate star behind it. Just making sure that it's all down. Like so. All right, then I'm going to take my hello and I'm going to add a dimensional. Actually, I'm going to use a little mini one on this because I want it to go right here behind my H. So I'll pull one of these guys up. The mini dimensional goes on the H, and then what I'll do, let me show you how this is going to go. This is going to go right here. So it's, the dimensional is going to go on the blue piece. The rest of the word is on the star, which is already raised. So I don't want another dimensional here or it's going to actually be uneven. So at that point, I'll just put a dab of my liquid glue on the L and the O part of hello. Then when I mount it on here, it actually is all at the same level. Oh, I didn't peel the backing off of this. Okay, liquid glue is forgiving, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, there we go. Now I can put that right back in place and hold it. All right, so the H has the dimensional underneath. This part is glued flat, and that makes it all the same level. All right, I'm going to put my stars on next, and those are done very easily with just a little dab of liquid glue. So I've got one up here on the white. Let's go one down here in the blue and one on the side. All right, here's my star number one. So I'm going to lay it down and then just kind of push it. These are tiny, so between being difficult to pick up and then being difficult to let go of, you kind of are fighting it both ways. You could use your U-Pick tool with the gummy end on the end of it. Honestly, I love everything about that tool except for that gummy end. I don't have much luck with it. I'm sure the rest of you do. But I have just a cheap version of a jewel picker that I picked up somewhere. And actually that kind of an end works much better for me. So if I'm doing this kind of work, I just grab my jewel picker. But again, your U-Pick tool has one end that has an element for that. And if that works for you, then that's perfect. All right, the last thing that we need to do is add our baby words. And so what I would do is quickly line them up just for spacing. Kind of get them where I want. Now, if you have a hard time lining things up straight, of course, another way to do it is to make them crooked on purpose. So you could do it this way as well, or you could line them up straight, add a little bit of liquid glue behind, and then you have your completed card. So here's our baby boy card done with the Tidings and Trimmings stamp set, and Misty Moonlight is the featured color there. Okay, and then the pink one is the one that the gals made at Stamp Club. The third card that I'm going to show you features a product that I had never used before. I purchased it and it was sitting in my supplies, but I had not grabbed it yet to use it on a project. And that is this gorgeous rainbow glimmer paper. Now, I've got it inside a plastic sleeve, so the glare is probably not good. Let me just pull one piece out. It's actually a scrap that's left over from my project. But it's got the rainbow variegated colors that go across the spectrum. And what I love about this glimmer paper, not only are the colors bright and wonderful, but it's glimmery and glittery, but no glitter comes off. So this is a no mess glitter look, which some of you might really find attractive. If you like the idea of glitter, but don't want it all over the place or all over your house or all over your face. So this is a good option. Now, what I've done is prepared a card base and all the parts here. Let's switch colors. Let's do one in the Granny Apple Green. The first thing that I did is I took my, my card base, 8.5 by 5.5. It can be scored down the middle at 4 1/4 and folded in half. And the way that the card base colors were chosen for Stamp Club was determined by the piece of glimmer paper that you got in your packet. So this particular one I thought goes well with the Granny Apple Green. You can see this slice looked really good with the Bermuda Bay. Let me show you another one. And this is with Magenta Madness. So it just depends on the piece of glimmer paper that you got. My glimmer paper is cut to 4 inches by 2 3/4. So what I did is I took my 12 by 12 sheet and cut it into 4-inch strips, and then cut those strips into the 2 3/4 inch pieces. This way I was able to, if you were actually making this exact card, you could make 12 of them out of one sheet of rainbow glimmer paper. So I've got my card base. I have the black piece of cardstock, which is 5 1/4 by 4. And I have run it through the full-size Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine with the brick and mortar 3D embossing folder. So the one thing that you want to take note of when you do your embossing for this card is it would be really easy to just stick your paper in like this and emboss it. But if you do, because this is a vertical card, your bricks are going to be going the wrong way. So make sure that you take your piece of black cardstock, and again, it's 5 1/4 by 4, and turn it sideways when you put it into your embossing folder. That way, all that yummy brick texture is going to be going sideways across the card, which is what we want it to. All right, so I'm going to take that piece and go ahead and stick it down with some tear and tape. I do like to attach things with tear and tape when they have a lot of texture, and this does have a lot of texture. So it's not going to take a lot. I'm actually just going to do my corners. If you're worried about that not being enough, of course you could add more adhesive on yours. Okay, like so. Squish those down, and let's pull up the backing. The brick and mortar embossing folder is a 3D emboss folder, so it gives an extra chunky texture, but you also want to make sure that you build your sandwich the correct way when you put it through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, because you'll need specific plates and order for that because it's such a thick folder. Okay, so I'm going to eyeball that and line it up with equal margins all the way around. All right, then the next thing I'm going to do is take this black scrap that is actually cut to size. So it measures 3 1/4 by 2 1/2. I'm going to take a piece of adhesive sheet. Now, a little word about this. Mine happens to be old. I had a lot of adhesive tucked in my supply cabinet. This one has a backing that says Sizzix. Our newest adhesive papers are made by Stampin' Up, so yours won't say Sizzix on the back. But I'm going to use this up as long as I have it. So on either brand of your adhesive paper, you're going to peel the backing off, which is kind of funny because when you peel it, you're not sure which piece to use. So the piece you peel off is waxy and not sticky. That's the piece you're going to toss. And then the sticky piece, actually there's an extra little tab. Did you see that? The sticky piece is going to go stick side down onto the black cardstock. Now I cut my adhesive sheet a little bit smaller. Remember I told you that the black piece is 3 3/4 by 2 1/2, and my adhesive sheet is cut just a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to go all the way to the edges. Now, what I'll do is take a die, and this I thought was really fun. I actually cased this card pretty much from another demonstrator that I saw was making it. This Peaceful Moments stamp set comes with coordinating dies, and it's kind of one of those oddball matches where there were 2 stamp sets and 2 sets of dies, and they kind of were interchangeable. So the dies that go with this stamp set that's full of words are actually the floral and the leaves dies. Now, there's a die in here that I had never used before. It's this one, because honestly, I can tell, okay, that's a flower, that's a stem, that's a center, that's a leaf. I didn't really know what to do with this one. So it was very fun to pull this out and get to try it. So what I'm going to do is lay it onto the front side, onto the black side of my cardstock that has the adhesive on the back. And this is going to get run through the die cut machine. So let me grab all of the necessities for this again. I've got the position a little bit up and to the left, and that's because, as you'll see, the rest of the design of the card needs this space to be open. So I'm going to lay that down here on little Lulu and run that through. Now, one thing that is pretty neat about this particular die, since we have that adhesive backing on it, it's going to be really easy to pop all those little bits out. I don't even want you to take a lot of time trying to pop them out, because let me show you what's going to happen. Okay, see, I've got all those little bits that are still stuck in there. But once you start to peel off your self-adhesive piece back here, all those little bits, almost all of them, are just going to pop out with it. See, look at that. So you don't need to spend a lot of time worrying about pulling those guys out. All right, lovely. Okay, now let me also tell you a nice benefit of using that self-adhesive paper behind here is now I've got a lot of glue or a lot of adhesive stuck all over, even in these little tiny bits, in those little areas. So when I go to stick it on my Glimmer paper, it's going to stick really well. Otherwise, I would need to put quite a bit of adhesive onto all of those small areas in order to get it to stick to the grainy Glimmer paper. So this is just an ideal choice for adding an element on top of that Glimmer paper. So I'm going to choose to have the blue at the top and the green near the bottom. I'm just double checking to see if all my bits are out. They are. And I'm going to line this up with a border around it and stick that on. Oh my gosh. The Glimmer paper is the star. So again, it's nice and sticky even under all these tiny areas because of that self-adhesive sheet that we put on there. Love it. All right, I'm going to reach for some black Glimmer ribbon here. This actually was repeated in our annual catalog. They don't always bring back ribbon or embellishments, but this particular one came back. I'm super happy about that. And I am going to do my typical ribbon trick with this. So I want the ribbon to be pretty much at the bottom, right lined up with my black cardstock. So I'm just going to hold it in place, turn it over. Let's try that again. Hold it in place, turn it over. And I'm just going to add a piece of tear and tape on here to hold it. All right, and then I'm going to double check on the front here, line it up, and wrap it. Okay, and only for my own ease, I'm going to trim that off and I'm going to stick it this way. Like so. All right, now because I've already got adhesive here, I can simply add a little bit to some of these other areas and stick it onto my card front. All right, that's good use of our tear and tape right there. This black glimmery ribbon of course, is going to be a favorite again this year for Halloween projects. But even on this card, just that black shimmer looks so good used in conjunction with our Glimmer paper. All right, I love how this tape is doing double duty, holding the ribbon down, as well as creating our adhesive layer for this to go on the card. And you'll notice, if you're not stamping along with me and you're just watching, that I wrapped the ribbon on this piece before putting it on because the ribbon does not go. Actually, there's two ways to do this. So on this one, I wrapped it on this piece. Let's go ahead and attach that, and I'll show you what I did on the other one. So now you have option A and option B. All right, so let me bring in a different version of this. On this one, I can see that I actually wrapped the ribbon around the brick layer. So if you want to, that's why it was so long. If you want to wrap it all the way around that layer and then attach the bricks to the cardstock, you can do it that way. If you followed me today, then your ribbon is wrapped only on this piece. And I'm going to take a second little strip, just loop it in and tie a knot. So either way is totally acceptable. You know what we say when we're stamping and you make what someone else would call a mistake. All you have to do is say, oh, I meant to do that. All right, so I'm going to trim those little ends. This ribbon is nice. It's just stiff enough that it lays really nicely. All right, and then the last thing is it needs a little bit of a greeting. I did grab a happy birthday stamp, and this was actually out of that same set that I showed you, and that's where that really cool die was from, Peaceful Moments. So here's Happy Birthday, and normally I would stamp this on a scrap of white, and then I would cut it out, but I already had a circle cut, so we're going to do the unthinkable and stamp on the cut out piece, hopefully getting it centered as well as we like. All right, that'll work just fine. This circle is actually cut out from the stitched shapes, which retired and we all still love, but you could definitely, if you don't have those dies, you could definitely use a circle punch or a different circle die. And then I'm going to pop this up with a couple of dimensionals. I'm down to scraps on my dimensional here, so you know that there's still a lot of good work on this one. You don't want to throw it out. Just take your snips and cut these little pieces apart and keep using all those little scraps. All right, so I've got, oh, okay, I won't let go. I've got 3 dimensionals now on the back of this. And I can pop that up right here in the corner of my card. And the final step is really up to you. I can't decide. This one was left plain. This one on Mango Melody cardstock was also left plain. But some of the cards that we made at Stamp Club, we decided to add some glitter gems to, little glittery dots. So this one is on the Magenta Madness and this one on Bermuda Bay, and they do have the little glimmery, glittery dots. So it would be totally up to you if you want to add those or not. And those are the 3 cards that I have to show you today. Let me put them all out here one last time. I would love to have you comment and let me know which card you thought was your favorite one today. We'll put the boy one right there. And if you make these cards on your own, or if it inspired you to do a similar card, I would love for you to post pictures of your cards. I love to see the things that you stamp as well. In the meantime, thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.